Hello, this is Sierra and welcome to another video. Today we're doing another video reading Hermitcraft Genesis. We will try to do chapter 6 and 7 today. Albeit I did record a little bit longer than I usually do. I got like 40 minutes of recording, so we'll see. We might be able to get to chapter 8, but yeah. Time will tell how long these chapters are. You can already tell from the title of the video. Just let you know that there are captions available if you're interested in watching them. That there will be spoilers for this fanfiction story of mine, not related to anything the hermits have been doing, or have done. Although references might happen, you never know. If and when they make sense, they might be included. Because there are just some references that don't make a lot of sense. It's hard to put everything in there. You know, it's what it is. But yeah, let's get started and hope we don't get too much interruptions. Dazzler seems to enjoy me reading. Cookie and Cream seem to be enjoying it too. They're actually sleeping right now, where they were a second ago. Now they're up and about, wandering around, getting some yummy. They're hungry. Oh, Dazzler, you're fine. Chapter 6. Early morning sunlight poured in through the main room's large window. Curtains draped over the view from the outside. Not that Impulse wanted to see what was out there. All he wanted to know was that was yes. Even the grammar check agreed with that one. That Joel's protectors, Sean and Kane, were doing their jobs guarding the perimeter. Only one perimeter. Checking the cameras and invisibility detectors installed outside, making sure no one got in or out without them knowing. What happened to that paragraph? Don't ask. I would know. Even if they were being watched, it would take a lot to get inside to even get close enough to any of the hermits. At least Dimples hoped so. He stared down at the wooden table before him, at the wristband lying out in the middle. So, why did he feel like something was missing? He picked up the disabled wristband again, examining its components. There was still a lot he and Tango didn't know about this small gadget. How could something so small hurt so much? He shook his head, shaking the image of Grant's pale face, the bright red mark wrapped around his wrist. He didn't remember setting the band to go so high. Did Tango leave it that way accidentally? Impulse sighed, putting down the wristband. Didn't matter. He could fix it, and he'd make sure that even at such a high setting, or any setting, that Guardian Tech couldn't hurt anyone else. That the Guardian Tech couldn't hurt anyone else ever again. That he stopped Project Guardian in its tracks, like the hermits had done with many of their enemies' projects. Impulse? A quiet voice asked from the hallway. Impulse looked up, spotting Scar silently rolling in with his wheelchair. His face seemed to glow brighter, a smile on his face. Not bothering you, am I? I'm just finishing this up. Impulse scooped up the small emerald chip. He smiled at his friend. Guess it worked then? Yeah, Scar nodded, arriving at the table, rolling his chair beside Impulse's wooden one. It was nice hanging out with you and Graham. I should have done it sooner. Impulse shook his head, looking back down at the tiny gadget in the palm of his hand. He obviously needed rest more than facing that jerk again. Just thought you were trying to find Kate. But did it have to be like that? I didn't expect it either. We had him, Impulse. We had him. Mental teleportation. Impulse opened the face of the chip, tweaking some of the tiny redstone mechanics inside. Since he liked using ender pearls so much, I guess they found a way to move himself around. How? Scar frowned. Practice. The headband? Yep. Scar sighed. He never got to complete his secret assignment, did he? I guess not, but he was close. Impulse bit his bottom lip. Fortunately for us, it didn't work out for his friends. It didn't work out very well for him either, Scar started. Dead? Let's hope it stays that way, Impulse said grimly, replacing the emerald face and securing it back into place. That rhinestone doesn't find a way to actually bring him back. That would be bad. No kidding. Impulse placed the chip beside the wristband. I think I should test this on one of the monsters in the mob farm first, just to be safe. I don't blame you, Scar said. So what else are you planning on to do today? Wait for news, mostly. I want to know she's okay. I do too, Scar nodded. I'm sure she's fine. Impulse smiled weakly, tossing the 2 gadgets into the redstone box. And you? I'm okay, Scar beamed, putting his hand on the armrest of his wheelchair. Great! Impulse pushed back the chair, getting to his feet. I guess we can help with the kids' combat training, seeing as there's not much we can do right now. Maybe there's something we can do. Impulse looked over his shoulder to see Green, peeking from behind the doorway. Gem and Pearl found my surprise already. I think it's about time we properly set it up. An official alarm system, Impulse smiled. Green and the teen girls had hidden a communicator in one of the rooms upstairs that had gone off when the hermits got too close, resulting in the loudest noise Impulse had ever heard. It certainly was a surprise. Wink. I like that. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Maybe we can ask Doc to record a clip that will send intruders running the other way, with their tails between their legs. Scar's green eyes gleamed. Or we can come up with our own, Impulse noted. Oh, Doc's busy already with a lot of projects. This is something we can do with the easy way. Just need to make sure our protectors aren't far. Green giggled. If it gets our attention, then I don't see a problem with it. I'm just surprised you worked it out, Scar arched an eyebrow. I had a little help. Green smirked, stepping into the room. There may have been a few hours when I wasn't here. Impulse tilted his head at the hermit. So you were admitting you ran off. With good protection. Green spread his arms wide. Besides, this is Mumbo we're talking about. He's made his base a full-on bunker at this point. No one can get in or out without his permission. That's good, at least, Scar replied. No defectors can use him to lure you out of hiding. Barely even know Stampy. Graham lowered his arms. Just a sister. That's not a big reason to call me a traitor. I don't know, Bill said thoughtfully. These guys seem to be bold enough to make that claim if they went after Jam. They'll regret it. Green's eyes flashed. Dark eyes flashed. She'll make sure of it. I know she will. All that matters is that I was careful. I had to do something other than being cooped up in here. Bull shook his head, crossing the room to stand by his friend. Still upstairs, I assume? Hasn't moved, Green chuckled. You want me to get it? I don't want to push our luck, Impulse frowned, looking toward the hallway, in the direction of the elevator. We should let one of the others get it. Okay, Green mused, spotting the open redstone shulker box on the floor. So you ready for testing? I want to test them up first, just to be sure it works this time. Green nodded. Feel fine now. That's because Liam insisted you take a strength potion, Impulse pointed out. For good reason. I don't want to risk hurting you. You didn't hurt me. Green smiled, punching Impulse's shoulder gently. No harm was done. Just a weird glitch. Yeah, weird, Impulse mumbled, closing the box with his foot. Speaking of weird, Scar added, do you guys smell that? Impulse stood still, taking a deep breath, letting the air fill his lungs. I don't smell anything. Me neither, Green frowned. Huh, Scar replied. Maybe I'm just hungry. Impulse nodded, turning back toward the hallway, freezing in his tracks when he noticed 3 large men standing in the hallway. Their faces were covered by masks, with a bandana covering their mouths. Impulse could just barely see the back door. was wide open. Did they literally just walk in here? Impulse looked back over at Scar, the hermit's eyes growing wide as he pressed a button. His chair squeaked as he pushed forward, as the hermit frowned. I wouldn't try calling for help, one of the men said, his voice low, a bit over a whisper. In his hand he held a glass bottle, filled with sloshing liquid inside. Looked too squat and round to be a splash potion. I did not spell splash potion right. Spash potion. It had no neck to be a normal potion. Shiver ran down his spine. Guys, I think that's a Green squeaked, yelping when the man tossed the potion into the air. Impulse pushed Green out of the way, the glass shattering behind them. A weird, sweet smell tickling his nostrils. Sleeping potion! Impulse gasped, looking back to see Scar trying to push his chair backward, desperately pressing his hand on a button. Scar! The force field isn't activating. I can't open anything. Scar coughed, his eyes drooping as Impulse stumbled to his feet, staggering, helping Green up as well. One of the men was walking solemnly toward the wheelchaired hermit. It's not going anywhere, so why bother being quick about it? What about the rocket boosters? Green insisted, yelping again when something shattered behind him as one of the men appeared. Impulse yanked Green away as he extended his sword when the man lunged at him. Green screamed as the man tackled the older hermit. Impulse grunted as his head hit the hardwood floor. Run, Green! Get help! Impulse shouted, wrestling against the man holding him down. There's nowhere for him to run, the third man spoke from behind him. A pained scream filled his ears as Impulse's blood froze. And no one to help him. Both bedrooms are splashed with sleeping potions, just long enough for what we need. Green! Scar groaned as Impulse looked up, seeing the other uniformed man reach the hermit. Yeah, we don't need past tense there. Reaching for the Velcro strap as Impulse struggled harder. Scar's eyes were heavy. Impulse called out to his friend. Something thudded to the floor beside him, followed by a pained cry. Impulse groaned, glancing over. Green was lying on his back, his face twisted in pain. Soldier looming over him, an iron dagger in hand. So dark red with blood. Well, it is dark. No! Impulse screamed. He stopped fighting when he felt something cold and hard on his chest. Looked over. Through his desperate tears, able to make out the man and the gas blaster, he aimed at the hermit's chest. I wouldn't move if I were you, the man sneered, now looking at the other two hermits. His dark, stormy eyes flashed, almost like lightning. Otherwise, you're not going to have a good time, if you survive this at all. Impulse groaned again, sweet smell of the sleeping potion taking effect, as he heard a door slam open. His name being called, but he couldn't open his eyes. They felt like an anvil was slamming firmly on them. His head felt no better, as he distorted. Couldn't even send a thought, even if he wanted to. Had Scar and Green had better luck? Question's a little oof. Before he could know the answer, he felt a tsunami of pain erupt through him, and a hint of smoke. Red-hot fire flashed in his vision, feeling his body jolt upwards before he was consumed by darkness. Are you happy that I'm continuing on to chapter 7 after that? Because I could end this here. That's a cliffhanger! But I didn't really want to leave it at that. I want to keep going. Fortunately for you, I am keeping going. Chapter 7. There was only darkness. Felt welcoming, peaceful, embracing Impulse in shadows, its coolness refreshing as he let out a sigh. There was nothing to fear in the darkness. Pain, Don't worry. Just darkness. Impulse frowned. There were voices. Soft voices he could hear now. The sound grew louder as curiosity got the better of him. He had to know what they were saying. Who were they? Where was he? What happened to him? To his friends? Dread filled him as the memories flooded back to him. The sweet smell of a sleeping potion. Scar desperately trying to activate anything on his wheelchair. Green's cries of pain. Seeing the man looming over his friend. A glint of hunger in his eyes. Was Green okay? Scar? Did something happen to them? Had they been taken to Rainstone space, or were they? No, that's not possible. They can't be. Impulse pushed the thought out of his mind. Can you be sure? Panic rose inside him as Impulse struggled against the darkness. They can't save you if they're dead. Gerald's words through Scar's description of his nightmare whispered into his mind. Impulse shuddered. His friends had to be okay. They had to. His panic rising when they refused to left, pinning him down like a dead weight. What if it is too late? He did warn us that Rainstone was planning something. I've done the best I can. A voice spoke softly through the darkness. Tyler, what's he doing here? Everyone's out cold. But how could this happen? Another voice demanded. Impulse's heart skipped a beat. Tango! You must have felt the sphere through the link they shared together. He'd come to the rescue. How could 3 men sneak into a base with a bunch of sleeping potions and hurt our friends like this? I can't see anything on the cameras either. Tyler sighed. They're not functioning properly. Missing footage. Missing footage? Tango exploded. Only telling you what I'm seeing, Tyler said calmly. Apologies. Right. Sorry. There's nothing to apologize for. You have every reason to be upset right now. I am more than upset. Tango grumbled. Footsteps grew louder as someone sat down. Or at least that's what it sounded like to the hermit. Shouldn't have happened. It did. Just like it happened to Kate. Malfunctioning camera feeds. Silent disappearance. Looking right into the base. There was no problem. Were Sean and Kane okay? Were they dosed with sleeping potions too, or had them in? No, don't think about that. You can't go through that again. Not after losing Pearl's escort a week ago. So what are we going to do about it? I can't ask Sam to stay with them. He's out on a mission. I don't want to risk any hermit's safety right now. When she could send more after them. You can't stay here either, Tyler said solemnly. I'm willing to stay here until some of the protectors are able to regain consciousness. But there's no telling how long that will take. Skis never would have let this happen, Tango muttered sourly. He's sleeping like a baby, oblivious to what that jerk did to Impulse. Oh, he'll live, Tyler said gently. They all will. Can't leave until I know they're okay, Tango insisted. I don't care if it's dangerous. This shouldn't have happened. The darkness began to slip away from him, turning lighter and lighter as Impulse struggled to keep it back. He wanted to stay, to not have to be afraid anymore. Yet his friends needed him. He needed them. This was not the time to give up. He had to figure out what Dr. Rainstone was doing to bypass all of the security he'd set up with Beat-Up's help. Did she take Beat-Up's? No, sure he got what she needed out of him. You really know that? Impulse groaned. The darkness finally slipped from his grasp as his eyes fluttered open, staring up at the familiar blank white ceiling. Sunlight shone through the room. It was afternoon. How long had he been asleep? Impulse? Tango whispered, appearing into view. His ruby-red eyes filled with concern. A lump formed in Impulse's throat. Trying to smile, trying anything to reassure his friend that he was okay. He was okay, wasn't he? Tango looked over his shoulder. He's awake! Tyler appeared at the hermit's side a moment later, his eyes checking the hermit over before meeting his gaze. How are you feeling? Is everyone? Whoa there, buddy. Tango gently pushed Impulse back down onto the bed. when he attempted to sit up. You were just given a direct hit from a gas blaster 6 hours ago. You need to rest. 6 hours? Impulse's eyes widened. Kate? Tyler frowned. I haven't heard anything, if that's what you mean, but your friends are fine. Green and Scar are stable, and the others were given a low dose of sleeping potion. They should wake up in an hour. They should, Tango said simply. Like I said, it depends on where the center of the potion was. The closer they are to the heart of the splash, the longer is the effect. It wasn't a splash potion. Impulse tried to take a deep breath, wincing in pain, moaning softly. Oh, goody, Tango muttered. What was it then? I have the effects of sleeping potion. Tyler furrowed his brow. Lingering, Impulse said dryly. His lips felt like sandpaper. Tango's eyes widened. But they need the dragon's breath for that. Not improbable. Tyler frowned, reaching for his pocket. I need to report this. Seeing as Matthias is out of commission for a moment, I'll try to reach the next best thing. To be fair, they could use cauldrons too, because you can put potions in cauldrons in this world, but of course. I want to aerate the stakes a little bit. Carl? Impulse croaked. Might still be busy. Someone who will listen. Tyler patted the side of the bed, reassuringly. You're suffering from some serious burns. I would recommend bed rest for at least 3 days. But we almost lost you, Tango rasped, leaning closer to his friend. I could put you out. I didn't know what to do. I'm okay, Impulse smiled. Tango shook his head, sitting up straight as Tyler disappeared from view. His footsteps faded as the door closed a moment later. Tango let out a long sigh. Impulse turned his head, wincing in pain again, trying his best to hold back another groan. It hurt too bad, but he figured that was thanks to the healing and regen potions he'd been given. He was able to get a better look at the room as he let out a gasp. Green was lying limply in one of the occupied beds, his face as white as paper, his chest wrapped in bandages. Impulse watched his friend's chest rise and fall steadily. He almost looked like beat up from the assassin's first. He's okay, Tango said softly, grasping onto Impulse's hand, squeezing it. He had to give him an antidote. It was the only thing that was strong enough to help him with an injury like that. Tears filled Impulse's eyes. Sorry. For what? Scaring me half to death? Tango smirked, shaking his head again. No, buddy. I'd rather have 100 of those than losing you. Impulse swallowed. Why did his throat feel so dry? Why did every breath carry a hint of smoke? You shouldn't have had to see that. I don't care. Tango squeezed his hand again. Nearly lost you. Impulse sighed, staring back up at the ceiling again. How bad is it? Not as bad as it could have been, Tango said. It only lasted a couple of seconds. Maybe 10? Glad you were there. Get better, okay? We're going to find those hideouts and destroy them, block by block if we have to. She's gone too far. She's already gone too far. We'll stop her and destroy everything she's ever worked on. Tango's eyes narrowed as his voice took a more threatening tone. I mean everything. She'll have nothing to stand on when she's done. Impulse closed his eyes. Thank you. Don't thank me. Doc's the mastermind here. Tango chuckled. She'll regret it, that's for sure. And Kate? The other innocent people arrested us taken? Doc knows what he's doing. Tango mused. Have faith. Impulse snorted, letting himself relax. His friends were safe. No one was too seriously hurt. They'd get through this. They always did. Not again. Scar moaned as Impulse opened his eyes again. He looked over at Tango, who got to his feet, walking over to the sleeping hermit, just out of Impulse's view. Tango whispered something to Scar that Impulse couldn't quite catch. But it seemed to have worked. Scar fell silent. Tango rejoined him a moment later. Typical week? Tango raised an eyebrow. Almost 2 weeks, said weakly. It's worse than a mental manifestation of fear. He's there, tormenting him. Tango frowned. Get some rest. It'll get you off bed rest faster. Noted. Impulse smiled, closing his eyes again. Feeling Tango brushing a finger along the hermit's hand, sleep crept on Impulse, pulling him under like a tidal wave. Chapter 8 incoming. My throat is getting dry. I've been reading too long. 2 videos back to back. Impulse awoke again a few hours later, opening his eyes to a still quiet room. Tango was gone. Instead, Blake was sitting beside him, with a book on his lap. Impulse grunted, managing to sit up as the boy looked up. Where's Tango? Impulse asked the boy, noticing 3 empty beds by the door. Skiz and Eliza were gone. The only bed occupied was where Blake usually slept. Beat-ups had taken it the night before, so that Blake could be close by the door. Tyler and Tango left not long after I woke up, Blake said calmly. Eliza and Skiz woke up later. We weren't under the effects for as long as everyone else. Impulse nodded, rubbing the sleepers from his eyes. Where they know? Just outside the door, Blake shrugged. Skiz insisted after I told him what happened. Impulse winced. Not even sure how that happened. Me neither. Impulse closed his eyes, taking a slow deep breath. Should have been able to take them. It just happened so fast. It's okay. Impulse shook his head. Just okay. The camera's malfunctioned. There's missing footage. Impulse snapped his fingers. Not only that, but Scar's chair wouldn't work. It didn't? Blake's eyebrow rose. Yeah. Impulse turned his head toward his sleeping friend. Scar's wheelchair was beside the hermit, untouched. When those men showed up, he couldn't open the compartments or activate anything. Even the force field wouldn't turn on. Weird. You're telling me, Impulse groaned, moving his eyes to the bright yellow blankets of his bed. I didn't notice anything different. Those guys must have had some way of disrupting the gadgets. Just like Kate's abduction. Blake nodded, his eyes moving back down to the book on his lap before he closed it. At least it's all working now. But they will come back, Impulse insisted. What will we do then when all our gadgets are unusable? I can't let this happen again. I need to know how they're doing this. Figure it out, Blake sighed, putting the book on the nightstand. Impulse glanced at the cover. It was blue, with a brightly colored lingering potion on the front. When everyone's awake, we'll see if we can't find non-technical ways of security. We can find? Can do. Technical ways of securing the base. That way we can have a chance. I'll cover the technical side. Impulse replied, pushing his bed covers aside. First, you need to recover from that blast, Blake warned, putting a hand on the hermit's arm. We're not going anywhere until you're healed. Give me a gadget. Let me look at it. Let me try to figure out how they did this. Blake tapped on a communicator on the nightstand that Impulse hadn't noticed earlier. Footage from the camera should be there. If anything could be found, it's a good place to start. Impulse sighed, taking his communicator from the table as he looked down at it. He knew that his projector was right. This was something that could be done from anywhere. But would Tyler and Tango have found something if that was the case? Perhaps they missed it. Or more likely, there was nothing to find. He fiddled with the gadget, checking the camera feeds and scanning through the code. There had to be something here. Some way of knowing how this was happening. He frowned as he lowered the device onto his lap. How did they know when to attack? Did we miss a camera during our search? I don't know, Blake admitted. The currents were closed? Always. Secret tunnel? Blake raised an eyebrow. They walked through the back door. They did? Yep. Bills could see the concerned frown on Blake's face. He didn't blame him. Why would they just walk in if they had access to portal technology? Sure, you'd patch some of the bugs Camperdoll discovered, but that didn't mean there weren't more that could be exploited. They could have easily portaled in and done their dirty work. Why just walk in? And I'm not sure what they wanted. Why hurt us if they wanted to take us? Scar had no injuries in that attack. Still sharply, looking over his shoulder, seeing his friend still fast asleep. He was also in such a lingering potion. I pushed Korean out of the way. Blake sighed. Both you and Korean were mortally wounded during the ambush. Scar? Unharmed. Gerald. Impulse whispered, a flash of stormy gray eyes filling his mind, of the man who held the gas blaster to his chest. The same shade of gray Keith had been in the dream world. They looked exactly like Gerald's eyes. They were Gerald's eyes. Both shuddered, as flashes of the eyes looming over him. The eyes of the man who took pleasure in tormenting him, threatening to hurt him for getting in the way, for protecting his friends. Impulse? Blake's voice cut off his dark thoughts. Impulse blinked, realizing his gaze had left Scar. Nightmare, Impulse said softly. Gerald told Scar that no one would be able to help him because they were dead. But he's safe. You're safe, Blake insisted. It's just a nightmare. We'll have to make it real. Impulse continued, watching the steady rise and fall of Scar's chest. He wanted to finish us before Scar to relive the horrors over again. Kate! His eyes widened as he grabbed his communicator, tightening his grasp on it. Was Kate okay? Was that man taunting her right now? She'd been worried that Rhinestone might try injecting some of the girl's blood into other subjects. Subjects who would so resist to what Gerald wanted to do. I'm sure she's safe, Blake said calmly, resting a hand on the hermit's shoulder. She was scared this might happen. Impulse trembled as he kicked his legs around the bed, hearing a soft groan from Scar's direction before it was followed by a whimper. Rhinestone's creating her army. She's done it. She did it. She's won. No, she hasn't, Blake replied firmly. We're still here. You're still here. She didn't win. She may as well have. Impulse bit his bottom lip, reaching his mental hand towards Scar's leg. Scar squirmed in his sleep, groaning something he couldn't quite catch. She has Kate's blood. She can replicate it when she needs to make more. I'm not sure if Doc will be able to do anything to stop what she's doing. I don't think you believe that. I can't save you if you're all dead. A familiar voice filled the hermit's mind as he closed his eyes. No! Scar's defiant voice insisted. Yet Impulse could hear the dark shakiness in that voice. His friend had been screaming, tortured. I can show you again and again. However long it takes. Gerald laughed. The sound echoed throughout the darkness. We'll break you. Impulse opened his eyes as a scream filled his mind, as he stumbled out of bed, crossing the room before Blake could stop him. He knelt beside his friend, Scar's knuckles white, as he clutched the blankets that kept him warm. Jelly was nowhere in sight, as Impulse put a hand on top of his friend's. The hand was trembling. Scar's whole body was trembling. Beads of sweat shone on the hermit's forehead. We're okay. Impulse leaned closer to his friend, hearing a soft whimper. Brienne and I are safe. Safe? Scar whispered, as another scream filled his mind. Brienne! Impulse glanced back, seeing the other slumbering hermit, safe and sound. Some color had even begun to return to his face. Yes, we're safe, Impulse assured the hermit. We're here. You don't have to face him alone. A smile slowly appeared on Scar's face as grip on the blanket relaxed. Just imagine the river of peace calm through a lake, seeing his friend's tense features relax before Scar's eyes fluttered open. Impulse. Scar croaked hoarsely, his green eyes fighting the older hermit. I'm here, buddy. Impulse said simply. I can't hurt you now. Korean? Scar frowned, looking past Impulse to where Korean was lying. We're both okay, Impulse insisted. We're both okay, Impulse insisted. Tyler and Tango stopped them. Doc won't let her get away with this. Not this time. Scar smiled. Thank you. I'm not sure I did much, Impulse mused, meeting his gaze. But I'm glad you're okay. Me too, Scar grunted, managing to sit up in bed, stretching with a yawn. I hated that. What happened? Blake asked, appearing beside the older hermit. Gerald, Scar whispered. The nightmare changed. So much worse. I couldn't get away. Couldn't escape. You're safe now. That's all that matters, Impulse replied, before looking over at the hermit's wheelchair. Want me to check to make sure everything's working normally before you get in? Got some things to do, and I might need your help. Scar's eyes brightened. I'd love to. Impulse smiled, turning to the wheelchair. Blake stepped in front of him before he got too close. Wrong two. Ew. Not deal. You're technically still recovering, Blake warned. It's not safe to go anywhere alone without at least one protector with you. Better with two. I'm sure we'll be fine, Scar said happily. Impulse looks fine to me. Yeah, Impulse nodded, looking down at his chest. He wore a new black t-shirt, bearing the typical golden symbol on the front. You know it. He wasn't sure when someone had gotten it to him. But it didn't matter. He felt fine. Please don't overdo it, Blake sighed, shaking his head. Just don't want to go far from the other hermits, just to be safe. We won't have to, Impulse replied. Just need to look at one of the cameras for starters. That should be fine, right? Blake smiled. Right. He stepped aside and Impulse knelt beside the wheelchair, checking it over. Everything worked flawlessly, as he expected them to. Whatever Rhinestone's goons had done had left no trace that anything had happened. I suppose he should have expected that. Just need to figure out how they were achieving it, and what he could do to prevent it from happening again. I'm going to stop it there for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Yeah, I'm probably going to stop recording because I need some time for my voice to rest. It feels so dry and wuss. I don't know if you can hear it from the recording, but it is happening. So, yeah, I gotta stop. But I do hope you enjoyed this video, and come back for chapter 9 and onward. However many there are. Just wanted to get a little ahead, so I have more time to write the next part. Not having to record this. Cause yeah. I'm on chapter 11 right now as of recording, with part 5, so I thought I've gotten past some of the hard parts, just gotta sit down and do the rest, which I can do. But yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one, whenever that might be. Goodbye.